Well, we're presently running the 5-day before 5. I would imagine that if something doesn't break between now and the weekend, then we're going to ask the International Union in Detroit to submit a 5-day letter to management, which would put us into the final 5 days negotiation beginning next Monday, possibly Sunday or Monday of next week.
Isn't it true that Curtis Gaines was once an informant for the Dallas Police Department?
I'm not aware of Gaines being a police informant from the standpoint of working for the police department.
He never gave any information to the police and cooperated with your department?
Well, I didn't say that he hadn't given information to the police department. We have, on frequent occasions, gotten information of one sort or another from various individuals and groups in the city. And so I wouldn't say that we haven't gotten information from any one individual, but this man has not functioned as a paid informer of the Dallas Police Department.
And either do it through a subcommittee or directly to the board. The area of curriculum, the evaluation of school performance.
Obviously, we have not had an opportunity to confer ourselves concerning the points that you made.
The board didn't say.
Library facilities, personnel policies, particularly that we wish to concern.
I think you made a wise choice.
Thank you.
Talk to these people, they're glad to see you at any time. So you have your organization, do these things, but this is the most open school system in the United States. Go up and see the library, go up and talk to the teachers. You have to talk to you.
We have made a decision that Keith Bobo deserves an opportunity to work with the #1 unit this week in practice, and as a result we will really have some difficult, very tough workouts this week under combat conditions to see if Keith is really as good as we think he is based on his New Mexico State performance.
When will you actually make a decision, Coach, as to who will start against Rice?
Well, we will know by this coming Sunday. After we grade and look at the films this week in practice, we will definitely make a decision so that all of next week our #1 unit will practice intact.
Secretary Butts made the statement at a news conference this morning prior to his speech on rural America. I asked the Secretary about the progress of the many investigations that have been launched into the deal with Russia.
First, we had the Purcell Committee in the House of Representatives that conducted its 3-day hearings. And then the GAO, which is under domination of the Congress, is having an investigation. That'll be something less than non-political, to be sure. Congressman Neil Smith of Iowa has announced his investigation, and to have Neil investigate this is like sending the rabbit out to guard the lettuce patch. The only person I've found complaining about this is George McGovern, and if George had done this deal himself, he would now be hailing it as the greatest thing since the virgin birth.
Following his speech to the ABA, Secretary Butts came by the Channel 8 studios, where I met him at the front door. During his speech, Congressman Graham Purcell of Texas had jumped on that Russian wheat deal again, this time quoting a Chicago daily newspaper which said the wheat is finding its way out of Russia through communist China and into North Vietnam. I asked the Agricultural Secretary his reaction.
Gaines was a paid informant for the FBI?
I can't answer that.
telephone communication. It's difficult, but it's great that I do. But you understand, I put it as an authorization. At least we aren't at all the level on budget authorizations and expenditures, especially the next fiscal year. And there will be.
You think you might manage those?
Well, I'll field any and all.
Okay.
I hope I can anyway.
Okay, thank you.
I'll try.
All right.
The progress during the probationary period was on most of the money.
Well, for an innocent man to think about.
Well, I don't either. And I sure do. Well, of course, they're either for
and then you put your thumb right here. And you make sure that the Nixon can be seen by the camera.
Squeeze it real hard.
Right. Okay, go ahead, toss it then. Just like that. Okay, Bob.
How about that?
So off they go, Les and Buck. The next stop, Shreveport, Louisiana. Jerry Taft, Channel 8 News, reporting.
They will actually work 50-50 between fullback and tailback. Alvin will be required to play fullback, just as Wayne will be required to play fullback, and we feel like in doing this that the defensive team will not be able to key on us as they have in the past, particularly on Alvin Maxson.
Coach, you had a 42-point lead in the ball game in the fourth quarter, and yet you had both Maxson and Morris in the ball game. Would you explain why that was the case?
Well, that's a real good question, and I spent considerable time after the ball game explaining to the New Mexico State head coach what we were attempting to do, other than run up the score. I certainly didn't want anyone to think we were trying to run up the score. This was the first ball game where we'd actually moved Alvin Maxson to fullback. We'd had Wayne Morris at fullback. We needed, under game conditions, to take a look at the two youngsters in the same backfield and let Alvin run with the football some from fullback, just like we needed Keith Bobo to throw the football under pressure. He hadn't thrown a football in a game this year, so we passed late in the ball game, and we kept our two top runners in the ball game late, and I'm sure it appeared a little bit maybe unethical from the standpoint of a team that was down 42-6, but it was strictly to help us prepare for conference play. I feel like as a coach I have a certain loyalty to my team, and I felt like that we could not have a good workout this week unless we got this on film, and this was the reason for it.
This Saturday, Channel 8 will carry the Texas-Oklahoma game. Telecast begins at 2:30, kickoff at 2:50 in the Cotton Bowl. These are the Texas Longhorns. They are 3-0 for the year. They've defeated Texas Tech, University of Miami, and Florida, and last week had a bit of a scare against Utah State. They face the Oklahoma Sooners, and they face a mighty tough ball club. Coach Darrell Royal had his weekly press conference this morning, and here's what he had to say. Could you give us your appraisal of the Oklahoma offense?
Well, awesome. And after you say awesome about Oklahoma's offense, then you can get down and start talking about why. And the reason why they're awesome is that they have a big, strong, mobile offensive line, and they have the most fantastic speed of anyone in football. I doubt if in the running back positions. There are many people in pro ball. As a matter of fact, I doubt if there are any that have the speed, the outright sheer speed that Oklahoma has. And they not only can run fast in a straight line, they can run crooked. They are elusive, and they're just exceptional, that's all. And no one has really stopped Oklahoma. About the most you can hope for is to slow them down a little bit. I kind of wish we both just had 4 possessions apiece a half, like I was talking about a minute ago. That holds them to 28 a half.
Coach Royal at his press conference yesterday at Austin. Today, News 8 finds itself on the move on the campus at Norman, site of the Oklahoma Sooners. We talked with their ringmaster, Coach Chuck Fairbanks.
We really don't know for sure how good our team is against a running attack because we've played 3 passing teams to date, but I think that we're going to be a good defensive team throughout, maybe a better defensive team than what we've been in past years. And offensively, I don't know for sure whether we're any better or as good as we were last year. Texas's offensive team, I think the big difference in this team of Texas is that you haven't heard people talking about a Phillips or a Bertelsen or a Wooster, and it's natural that they wouldn't because the people that are handling the football are pretty much all new players this year. They've got new ends, both at tight end and split end, a new quarterback, new halfbacks, and a new fullback. And I think that these players are good players, and as they get experience and so on, they will become better and better, and I think that this has been true in their first 3 games.
Tomorrow and Friday, we'll take a look at the players of these 2 teams.
You've got to remember that Lilly is an all-pro tackle, not an all-pro telephone caller. So when he started canvassing for votes for President Nixon today, it took him 2 tries to score. Lilly, along with Cowboy teammates Leroy Jordan and Dave Manders, opened the Nixon headquarters on North Central Expressway, using as their theme tossing the ball to Dallas voters. And they were outside later autographing footballs for fans and presidential supporters when Lilly not only explained the tossing the ball theory to me, but demonstrated it. The question is how Lilly can not only toss the ball, but at the same time be in one of the 9 other Nixon telephone centers around Dallas to catch it. Phil Reynolds, Channel 8 News, on the move.
It's a marvelous thing that you did for them, and for that service, I would like to present to you a certificate of appreciation from the Fort Worth Fire Department. It reads as follows: Certificate of Appreciation presented to Peggy Miller in recognition of outstanding service in the interest of the Fort Worth Fire Department. And I'd like for you to have this on behalf of the Fort Worth Fire Department. Thank you, Mrs. Miller.
Thank you. Boy, you're a movie star, too. Ready?
I like that story. Bill? I think it was worth all of it.
Oh, that's real fun.
Not only are the ordinances new, but so is the department to enforce them. The Litter Control Division was organized specifically for this purpose. The division is headed by George Sapp, a retired Army colonel who told me he feels the only real way to control litter and weeds in Dallas is through cooperation from the public. Toward that end, Sapp has a staff of 37 to help search out violations, and he says all the problems aren't just in the city's ghetto areas. To prove his point, Sapp took me into a North Dallas area where one alleyway contained countless violations. The ordinances have been in effect for less than a month and make an occupant responsible by law for the appearance of his property. Even in an alley, Sapp explained, this means keeping litter off the ground and the weeds cut to a height of no more than 12 inches. Sapp feels one of the greatest crimes in American cities may be the continual exposure of children to such street scenes, thereby conditioning them to accept this as normal. But Sapp hopes to discourage such thinking here in Dallas, not through those $200 fines, but through public cooperation. Jack Hill, Channel 8 News on the Move.
It's a 1973 American Motors Gremlin pulling into Arlington en route from Los Angeles to New York. to find out whether the car can be driven cross-country under normal conditions and meet 1973 auto emission standards throughout the trip. Special equipment and a NASCAR official monitor the car's performance at each stop.
Howard, what happens here? What are you doing?
Well, we're checking the exhaust emissions, and it's essentially the idle quality of the exhaust for carbon monoxide and hydrocarbon content.
You were saying you're having a problem because of the freeway over there.
Well, the air is flowing right off the freeway, and our instrument is so sensitive that the air coming off the freeway is a little richer in hydrocarbon than the exhaust of this particular automobile.
You're getting the air around us is dirtier than the air coming out of the exhaust. Is that what you just said?
I don't like to say that when I'm in Dallas.
But that's what you just said.
Well, thank you for putting words in my mouth.
Fuel for the trip is standardized. It is not, as they say, climatized. This car is getting no help from chemists and engineers. For the 1,378 odd miles from L.A. to Abilene, the car averaged 27.9 miles per gallon at 47.06 miles per hour. Figures are computed at each refueling stop.
Equals a miles per gallon figure of 26.27 miles per gallon. 26.27.
Pretty impressive figures for a standard production car, perhaps a tribute, at least in part, to the feather toe driving techniques of Les Viland, the driver-engineer from American Motors.
Is there anything unusual about the engine in this car, Les?
No, this engine is certified as stock by NASCAR, strictly stock.
Okay. The whole car is, I suppose.
Right, yes.
Okay, well, Buck, nice to meet you. Les, have a good trip.
Thank you.
So long.
Okay.